Hi, I'm Elizabeth Parker, and this is The Sirens of Audio.
We have been subscribed.
Subscribed to what?
The next level of podcast. We are the Sirens of Audio. Every citizen will receive a free download. You will subscribe to us.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you couldn't increase your reach. But listen to me. This experiment ends tonight.
Subscribing is compulsory.
And if I refuse?
Don't!
What if I refuse?
I'm telling you, don't!
What happens if I refuse?
Then you are not compatible.
And what happens then?
You will be deleted.
G'day audiophiles, this is The Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other cult TV in the audio medium. My name's Dwayne.
And my name's Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
Philip, how are you?
I am a bit tired, Dwayne, but I'm fine.
I don't blame you, because we are this weekend in Sydney with Carol Ann Ford, so I trust that's all going very well. Unfortunately, I'm not in Sydney at the moment, but I'm sure everything is going swimmingly for you there, Philip.
Well, I'm missing you not being here because, boy, without your extra hands, it's making life a lot harder. But never
Sorry
mind,
about that.
Things happen. No, it's my fault too. Just the events.
Got to do them when they want to do them. So that's just how it is. All right, today on the episode, we have a special guest, as I mentioned last time. We are going to be talking with Elizabeth Parker. And for those Doctor Who fans who don't recognise Elizabeth Parker's name, she worked on 2 television Doctor Who episodes in the classic era. She did the special sound on the Stones of Blood. Now, if you go through the credits, you'll see that it's potentially, unless they've changed it since I last looked, credited to Dick Mills. But the reason he's there is that it was an error, and he was actually on holidays, and Elizabeth came and filled in for him. So that is the reason why you may not see her name on the credits for the Stones of Blood, but it is Elizabeth, that is for sure. She also did the soundtrack to Timelash, which you can find on a CD called, I think, 30 Years at the Radiophonic Workshop. That's where the suite is for Timelash. And I might even see if I can throw a bit in there from time to time throughout the interview today. But Elizabeth worked at the Radiophonic Workshop for a long period of time, from the late 70s right to when it finished in the mid-90s. So we'll get her insights on that. But Philip, she also worked on Blake 7. We're going to find out a bit about her work on Blake 7, but not straight away.
No, we're going to have to wait until we get to season B or 2, depends whether you're a purist or not, of Blake 7. So that's going to be about 12 months away for those of you who've already subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please go subscribe. And if you don't watch Blake 7, start watching Blake 7. The second Blu-ray is due to be released anytime now. You can still get you can get the Blu-ray fairly cheaply. It's on sale in a few places. It's not too expensive through some of the online stores. So grab the first season of Blu-ray, start watching with us, and I think it's a fantastic show. It's got lots of Doctor Who links. Our podcasts do a lot of Doctor Who links backwards and forwards as we look at all the connections between cast and production people. So there's lots of Doctor Who in the podcast, but there's also lots of Blake 7. And we're getting lots of great people to come and be interviewed and talk about their time on the show. So if you want to understand 70s television better, it's worth listening to. So no matter what you like, there'll be something in the Blake 7 The Way Back podcast for you. Go subscribe. We need the numbers.
And it's not just you and I on Blake 7 The Way Back. We've got an interesting cast.
There's some good-looking, talented people.
There is. We've got Todd, who also works with Flight Through Entirety as well, who has joined us as a regular on the podcast, and Chris from Melbourne as well, who has worked with us on our events over the last few years. He's joined us too. And the interesting thing about Chris is that he's never seen Blake Seven before. How can you be a Doctor Who fan and not see Blake Seven? Well, Chris will explain why.
I don't know. He knows nothing.
And we're getting his first thoughts on, you're getting his reaction after the episodes as well. I think it's interesting. We've been recording through winter, but you got his reactions in summer. So we'll all be rugged up in winter time, and then you'll flash back to him and he'll be in his singlet. So I think that's pretty funny. But it's very interesting to get those insights from everybody. I think it's a good show, and you're doing a great job putting it together, Philip.
Thank you. And we've got a few famous star fans joining us as well soon. So they'll start joining us as well. We've got Gary Russell lined up coming in 2 weeks, 2 months' time, and a few other big fans as well. And as I said, we're touching on other sides. We're touching on the books. We're touching on the audios, all kinds of side trips as well. So it's got something for everyone, I am sure.
Very good. All right, we're going to chat with Elizabeth Parker in a moment. But before we do that, do you know what, Philip?
Yes, I do know what.
Oh, well, I'll say it anyway. Let's jump down the rabbit hole. All right, we are in the rabbit hole, Philip, and for once, I preempted you. I gave you a couple of minutes' notice anyway. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, not enough.
I want to get your thoughts on sound effects over the years, because our next episode after this, where people are getting preview screenings at the live events, but we're going to be speaking with Brian Hodgson as well, who was with the Radiophonic Workshop doing special sounds for the early years of Doctor Who. So I want to find out what your thoughts on special effects you think worked, and special effects you think, or special sounds that you think didn't work. If you want me to go first, I'm happy to throw in my 2 cents worth on some of my favourite sounds, if you like.
Yeah, go on. Why don't you go first? That'd be good.
I've got one sound that potentially works because it's so funny, but doesn't work because it's so funny at the same time, and that is the slither from the Dalek invasion of Earth. I love the way that it kind of slithers around. You've got the brooding sound of it from the background, but for some reason they decided to put some kind of screeching person over the top of that brooding, scary slither sound that made it sound utterly ridiculous, but wonderful at the same time. Do you remember that sound?
I do. Can I say that it's funny because the one I was going to say, one that doesn't work, though it's amusing, is inside. It's Genesis of the Daleks. So there's another Dalek story, another Terry Nation story.
Really?
Inside the breeding room with that squelching. Oh, I can't stand that.
Really?
I don't think it works. You like it?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
so-
Yeah.
Oh, that sound just annoys me. And then you've got the giant clam sound, and there's a lot of stuff in Genesis Daleks where the sounds really annoy me. But the naturalistic ones, so things like climbing the metal when Sarah's going up that rocket and the clang, 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 that to me is utterly terrifying. So to me, the naturalistic stuff I actually find really terrifying in that. But yeah, that squelch, 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 squelch of the Daleks, that's silly, like they're talking. I just think it goes a bit too far. But that's me. What else do you think? What else is successful?
Okay, a really successful one to me, and I bring this up with Brian Hodgson too in our future chat, is the Auton sounds from Spearhead from Space. Not the Terror of the Auton ones, because they don't make the same sound. They don't make it at all. But in the factory, you've got the whirring sound, and well, the gun noises are always good, but that sound of the Autons, creeping up behind you with that whirring noise is absolutely terrifying. There's one shot of the Auton. Everything to do with the Autons in that story was scary. There was one shot of an Auton receiving a signal, and it was just someone blowing a whistle, like a sports whistle. And the way they treated it and they overlaid something over the top of it, that sounded scary to me as well, especially when they panned in on the Auton's face. So that's a super, super scary one for me. I've always struggled with the Yeti because the sound effect is great, but I'm not a huge fan of the Yeti design. It just doesn't work for me. Do you?
Yeah, you actually jumped in because I was going to say the Yeti too. So I love that I love the sound effect.
Yep.
But the ball doesn't roll smoothly, and so the rolling of the ball. Because I'm thinking about Abominable Snowman when I'm thinking that Yeti sound particularly. It happens in Web of Fear too. But for me, that the one episode we have of the Abominable Snowman, where you've got the sphere rolling along, and you've got that sort of beep beep beeping sound that it makes, which I love that sound. But because the ball's not rolling smoothly, it doesn't quite. It just sort of jars as it moves along. And so yeah, that's one that I love the sound, but the image doesn't go quite so well. Another case of that too, in terms of loving the sound but doesn't quite work, is Invasion of the Dinosaurs. And so to me, the dinosaurs roaring and the pterodactyl, I love the sound effects. If I didn't have the visuals,
yep.
I would so enjoy it. But the visuals take me out of the sound effect because the two don't quite merge together because they haven't quite got the dinosaurs right. So that's another case of great sound effect, doesn't quite work.
Speaking of Mac Hulk and lizard stories, I love the Silurian sounds, the sound of their homing signal as well. I love the sound of the third eye. That really works for me. It works brilliantly. Yeah. The ones that I thought of the Slither as a potentially a bad one, but I still love it anyway. But another one that people may find irritating, but I still love it, is the Horns of Nymon, where the Doctor's working on the TARDIS console, and then things start exploding, and you've got the ruler, getting sprung on the side of the table, and all those crazy cartoon type sound effects. Do you forgive that sound effect in that because it's season 17? It's just how it is, or does it irritate you?
Yeah, no, no, and I think there's one where K9's falling apart as well, which does some boing, boing sounds, which I feel that might be the Leisure Hive. Maybe, no, that's a bit too silly for the Leisure Hive. There's certainly one where K9 sort of falls apart and springs apart with some awful sort of comedy sound effects that just. It's actually a sad moment because K9's falling apart, and then they're using silly comedy, and then Tom Baker says something silly as well. It's one of those, oh no, you've jumped the shark with that one. Another sound effect that I think works really well, and they brought in the new series, is just the Dalek heartbeat from the city for the original Dalek story. Yeah. That sort of heartbeat sound which they use in the
control
spaceships.
room.
Yeah. I still remember the control room. I still remember in the new series when Christopher Eccleston lands. No, I'm just saying what it is. But you're somewhere and you hear the heartbeat sound before you know the Daleks for the story. And as soon as you hear that sound, you go, "There's Daleks here." That's what I'm not trying to think what new series story it is. I was thinking it was the spaceship one, but I'm not sure now. Yeah. Oh no, it is. Sorry, it is that one. Of course it is because. When you got the controller wired up, so it's before you actually know that there's Daleks in the story, in that first part 12, whatever it's called. But you sort of go to the spaceship, but before Bad Wolf, and then before you see the spaceship, you just hear that sound, and so the dread just grows in you before you even see them. I think that's an effective sound. That by that stage is 40 years old plus 45 years old. And so I think, a sound effect made back then is still so effective today. The cloister bell, which only originated in Logopolis, it's only been used in a few stories. Really, it gets used in Big Finish quite a lot now. But that cloister bell, which once again I'm not sure it really isn't the sound of a cloister bell, but it's one of those memory things that just let you know something is bad. And I remember watching the two-parter with the first Doctor. You see my brain's fried. What's the two-parter right at the beginning with Karen Ford?
Age of Destruction.
After the Dalek. Age of Destruction. I so expect to hear the cloister bell in that episode And it's sort of I really think they should go back and when they finally release season 1 on DVD, if they ever get the rights to Unearthly Child, they should put the Cloister Bell into Edge of Destruction because it's so badly needed in that episode.
Yeah, it'd work. I think it would work. Let's talk for a few seconds just about the sounds in the Stones of Blood. Do you think they're effective? I think the sound of the stones themselves are awesome. The way they trundle around, and there's kind of a heartbeat in there because it's blood. So they're taking blood from their victims, and you can hear the pumping of the blood through the stones. Yeah.
The scariest scene I think ever in Doctor Who's in the Stones of Blood, and it's that scene where the camper,
the hand,
when he comes out of his tent, and it's this little couple. They're only in it for a few minutes, and yet you get to know this couple, you get to like this couple, and he comes out, there's a stone there, and he puts his hand on the stone, and she's holding on to him, and the sound just increases, the light pulses, you watch his hand turn red and turn to skeleton, and them screaming. So even after it's a skeleton hand, they're still screaming because they're not even dead yet.
It's terrifying.
But they're still being able to scream. That to me, I don't think there's a scene that's scary in Doctor Who. That's probably why I love the Stones of Blood so much. But that scene, I remember being horrified by, and it still chills me. And there's the noise of the stones as they're racing through the house. I can't believe they've not brought the Ogre back. Like, there's such an amazing race. Why have we not seen more Ogre ever in Doctor Who? Have they been in Big Finish? I
don't think they have.
Have they Ogre never been back? Wow.
Well, I'll have to look it up. They've probably been in a book.
Look it up, but I can't. Yeah, I mean, what an amazing. Yeah, there's a few things you sort of think, why have they never been back to the show? Certainly back to the show. But yeah, the Ogre were just amazing, and what a brilliant episode that was.
What about the Megara? What did you think of those sound effects? The other end of the story.
Once again, I think the sound effect works. I'm not sure the visual effect works. The sort of light things buzzing around.
Yeah, like fireflies.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I don't mind that. Yeah, it's such a bizarre. I mean, once again, the two stories we talked about last week, we suddenly do sidesteps into different worlds. Stones of Blood really does that, doesn't it? It does this major sidestep onto the Khalifi's spaceship.
Galactic.
Not where you expect to go at all. Galactic. You do that sidestep onto her ship, and it really is the most amazing time. Oh, I need to watch the Stones of Blood again.
Yeah, me too.
Mary Tam. Oh, I adore Mary Tam.
Yeah.
There's few stories that work as perfectly as Stones of Blood, actually. There's not I don't think there's a bad moment in it.
No, there isn't. No, it's beautifully done. And we have Elizabeth Parker, who did the special sound on the episode today. So why don't we crawl up out of the rabbit hole and go and have our chat right now with Elizabeth Parker. Well, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the Sirens of Audio, Elizabeth Parker. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be on your podcast.
Thank you for joining us. I know you like listening to a podcast or two. It's something we all tend to do these days, isn't it?
Funnily enough, I actually still like listening to live radio. So I'm not really as much into podcasts as I ought to be, but I'm getting there. I love live radio, though. I love the mistakes that might happen. I like the feeling that it's actually going out at that time. Although weirdly, last night I listened to radio in the middle of the night, the World Service, and I heard a play that I did some music for ages ago. Suddenly thought, hang on, I recognise that music. And lo and behold, it was Chekhov, The Seagull. So, I love live radio, but I also love listening to radio. I don't listen to so many podcasts, but obviously I'm going to be listening to your podcast.
Very good. Now, well, it's interesting you mention you've got such a large body of work. You're interesting in that you started working in music when you were, electronic music in particularly when you were cutting reel to reel, and you ended up going right through into the digital age and doing things on computer. So you've been able to see that whole spectrum of change over that 20, 30 year period.
Actually,
but before we talk about that, Well, I wasn't going to say. um, but if we could go right back to your childhood, I guess, because I know you have a love for music. Where did that love come from? Did you have musical family? Did you have influences there? And what were your musical influences?
I had hugely musical parents. My mother played violin, my father played flute. We all had to learn an instrument or two. My mother stood by us as we did all our practices. So that was 10 practices because there were 5 of us. And I loved music, but I always had a feeling that I wanted to move away from classical. I'm not really a classical musician. I have perfect pitch. You know, I can recognize a key that something is in or something like that. And I am very musical, but I always wanted to move out into more experimental music. I don't know where that came from, but I was able to study electronic music at university, and that was really where I got into very contemporary music and moving between classical and pop more, which is really what has influenced me an awful lot.
I've got to say, I'm a classic rock fan, so my favourite era is 68 to 78. That's my favourite decade of music. I think that's one of the most inventive periods in history for music. What was it like going through that particular time? Were you into that kind of stuff, or were your tastes far more eclectic than just that?
Well, I mean, when I was 16 or 17, I used to go up to London and listen to Messiaen and all sorts of very contemporary music that actually was very serious contemporary music. And I didn't really feel that it was the kind of music I enjoyed. I'm afraid I loved the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Procol Harum and, so they are the soundtrack to my growing up, really. And I guess trying to emulate them sometimes in electronic music was certainly probably something I shouldn't have been doing, but I did do. For instance, the Procol Harum, I think it's Procol Harum, I'm Not in Love, the multi-layering, the Beach Boys, God Only Knows, good vibrations, fantastic. And so quite often I was trying to take that on board as I wrote my music or when I was doing the music. So, but at the same time, I loved Vivaldi and Hildegard of Bingen, the 14th century nun, 13th century, I think, who wrote amazing plain song. I loved John Tavener, the 40 thingy motet, the 40 voice motet. So I have had a huge amount of influences, really. I couldn't pin down one of them. Bach, I love Bach. I don't enjoy listening to Beethoven so much. Because I've heard his symphonies so often, and that sounds dreadful, doesn't it? But there were a huge number of influences, eclectic. I'm very much a bit of a butterfly when it comes to music. I take on all sorts of things, and of course, natural sound, because natural sound was something that I very much wanted to incorporate into music when I got into the electronics. When I became an electronic composer, I had the use of samplers, and that meant I could pick up ordinary sounds and make them into music, and that was a huge thrill.
When did you move from being a performer of music to a composer of music?
Well, I think I was composing at the same time as I was performing. In fact, I was a dreadful performer because I actually failed my grade 8, which is sort of the top grade of cello, because I was shaking so much. I am not a performer in terms of performing in front of an audience. I absolutely freeze. I mean, it was bad enough doing this podcast, but I'm relaxing now. But no, I was not a performer, although I performed in groups and choirs and orchestras, lots and lots and lots. But at the same time, I was studying music at A level, and I was writing my own stuff. It tended to be rather awful 12-tone, beep, 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 the sort of stuff that was quite fashionable at that time. I certainly wasn't into writing pop music or even writing rhythm tracks or anything like that at that stage. I was writing classical 20th century, late 20th century music then. So it was later on in my 20s that I was able to start using the sequencers, using the equipment, using the samplers, using the PPG waveterm synthesizer that I had. And that was when I started to move more towards the sort of music that I've always enjoyed.
You studied music at university, I think in East Anglia. So was that course, what was the focus of that course? Did you start electronic music then, or did it really have to come out of your own study?
No, I went to the University of East Anglia to read music and fine arts because I didn't want to just be a serious musician. And in that time, I was studying 12-tone music with a very, very good tutor. And at the end of it, they asked me if I'd like to be a guinea pig for a course for recording techniques and electronic music. So I jumped at the chance. I'd already heard of the Radiophonic Workshop and was sort of very, very interested to go there. But I knew that if I did this course, I'd have a better chance of getting into the Radiophonic Workshop. So I had a year of absolute joy when I was recording orchestras, learning recording techniques, learning how to cut tape. That was the very first time that I actually cut tape. And part of my dissertation was this poem by Hilaire Belloc that I cut up, and it had a lot of sibilance in it. So it was shh, shh, shh. And so it was really, that was probably my first experimental piece. The other piece that I did there was with Tristram Carey, who again was very well respected electronic musician who had classical electronic, who had a great big Synthi 100, one of the massive ones where you stuck pins in and you made waveforms and you made music that went blink, blonk, blink. But it also taught me about wave sounds and how they work, and square waveforms, and ones that twizzle around. And one of the pieces I did with him was something that I later used for a trail for BBC One. So I was learning that year that I had. After I finished, they didn't run the course again, but it was fantastic.
Tell me a bit about your association with Tristram Carey. I did read that, and I actually did have him at a Sydney Doctor Who event once, about 20 years ago, just a couple of years before he passed away. A lovely man, absolutely lovely man. And so tell us about how you became associated with him.
How interesting! He was a sort of tutor. He was one of the people I went to see every 2 weeks. I have to say, I think if you'd mentioned my name to him, he might have just fallen over in despair because I simply didn't get the physics of this machine. And to me, it wasn't music that I was creating. And he and I mean, he taught me a lot, but I think I was probably the worst pupil he's ever had because I don't have any physics or chemistry or electronics behind me. So everything I've done has come from a musical perspective. So trying to get this great big Synthi 100 to emit some kind of musical, what I considered musical sound, was almost impossible. And I think he sort of despaired of me, but he was one of many composers like Harrison Birtwistle that I was going to hear. My interest in music, contemporary music, started first of all from that classical side of Tristram Carey, Harrison Birtwistle, Elizabeth Lutyens, people who were writing very modern, very contemporary music. And it was later on that I went over much more to the more popular side, which is actually, it comes from me. I am not a person with physics. So Delia Derbyshire, who was in the workshop before me, she came from physics and she has physics and music, but I'm very definitely English and music, language is English and music. I do not have a chemical knowledge in my brain at all. I'm not very good at maths. I'm not very good at physics. Music is my main thing.
I certainly get that sense. Just before coming on, I listened to the soundtrack to, is it The Living Planet? And certainly get that you're feeling those landscapes and those natural parts of the world. And I got a massage this morning too. So I thought next time I get a massage, I'm going to get my therapist to put that album on because it was fantastic. I could fall asleep to that. It was beautiful.
I love it. I think I was very, very proud of that album because it did actually it achieved what I was aiming to do, which was to not have a great orchestra crashing around as a background. I just wanted the music to come out of the natural sounds, and it really did that, and it very much was. I mean, that was 81, so it was actually before an awful lot of ambient music came out, or a lot of people now do similar stuff, and there's a whole realm of ambient music. But I was really trying to get the music to be part of the landscape, and in a way, some people may have said that I sold myself out because I moved away from this 20th century plink plonk plink, but very, very worthy, I might say. Probably I'm putting my foot in this a bit, but it was very worthy, but it didn't have any heart. It didn't feel like music to me. And so what I was trying to do was get electronic music to sound musical, to get feeling into it. I mean, Delia Derbyshire had done that on something like Blue, oh gosh, Blue Sands or something. And she had a lovely piece about the desert, and she used beautiful long sounds and long electronic sounds to evoke the desert. And so I was very much wanting to go down that route rather than the plink plonk that was very worthy and absolutely right, and 20, atonal, brilliant. But it wasn't my particular wish to go down that field. I separated from the 20th century classical to the 20th century veering towards pop or ambient music. There wasn't any ambient music, I don't think, apart from Brian Eno. Brian Eno was around in the 80s, wasn't he? But
Yeah, he started doing stuff like that in the late 70s. I think no Pussyfooting was about 78, wasn't it? So
same time.
But there were other bands like that were going on in Tangerine Dream, and German bands were heading in that electronic direction as well.
Oh, I
but a bit more less ambient, more krautrock. Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of them were there, doing that kind of thing at the time. But we were talking about you getting your degree. Correct me if I'm wrong with the chronology, but it was around 1973, I think you got your degree. And then 1978, you joined the Radiophonic workshop. What were you doing between then?
I became a studio manager. I joined the BBC because at that time you could not get into the radiophonic workshop, the BBC Radiophonic workshop, from outside. You just couldn't. So I joined as a studio manager, which gave me that necessary background in mixing stuff, in working multi-tracks, in learning about programs, how you make a program. It gave me the technical side, which was actually what I was severely lacking. And it helped me get the job probably in the end. So for 4 years, I was working at the BBC as a studio manager on the World Service, on Radio 3. I was particularly good at acting very quickly. I did some programs where you have to drop in the disc, you have to play on cue when they're reviewing a record, and really tricky, but I was quite good at that. So I did that so that was 4 years being a studio manager.
So what's involved in a day in the life of a studio manager?
A studio manager, you do, if you're working on the World Service, unfortunately, you do an 8-day shift, which I absolutely hated because I like my weekends, and it completely throws you. And then you're working over Christmas and everything. So I did actually manage to get into Radio 1, 2, 3, and 4, not local radio, but domestic radio. Because I absolutely hated that shift system. You worked, 5 days on, 3 days off, continuously, all the way around the year. And it's very disruptive. Even if you get 3 days off, the first day off is after a night shift. So unless you're a night bird, you sleep half the day. It just didn't suit me at all. So getting into domestic radio was much more fun. And working on Radio 3, Radio 4 dramas, Lord of the Rings was one of the first things I did. The sound effects for. So of course I was then moving into sound effects. That experience all helped me get a job at the workshop.
Were there many women at the BBC at that stage?
No. Delia was the last renowned one, Delia Derbyshire. And then they tended to have just one person at a time. But what they would do, and this is how I first went there, they had attachments. And they liked to have girls as attachees because it was a very male environment. So the first time I got there was for 3 weeks in the summer, boiling hot, and I was doing Stones of Blood, a Doctor Who called Stones of Blood. And it was these great granite blocks that used to emit blood used to come out of them and roll down their cardboard granite, and so I had to do the sounds for them. Which was quite fun, really good experience, layering tape, layering sounds. And that was the very first thing I did as an attachee at the Radiophonic Workshop.
It's a tragedy that you were filling in for Dick Mills, and he still got credited for your work on that story.
Oh, I didn't actually realise that. That's right, he was on holiday, wasn't he? Yeah, so
he was.
Well.
But we haven't forgotten you. We haven't forgotten you. Don't worry.
They introduced personal credits just after I arrived, so that was really good. So actually, I did get quite well known. I mean, the tragedy is, for example, Delia Derbyshire really made that Doctor Who Signoon from a little bit that and yet Ron always got credited. And yet she sort of made it into this amazing, iconic signature tune.
Did you ever meet Delia?
Yeah, I did, but she didn't know who I was. But what we did at the end, she used to ring me up in the afternoon. I'm not being unfair to her to say she was very, very drunk. And we had amazing conversations. I think maybe she was quite ill too at the time. And we just used to say to each other how we wished we'd worked together, because I think we'd have been brilliant actually together. We had the same kind of feeling for things. We had long conversations, probably 4 or 5, before she sadly died. But it was actually really great to talk to her, and I just wish we'd actually overlapped, because the two of us at the Radiophonic Workshop would have been an absolute powerhouse, and there would have been support, because I don't think there was ever another woman there while I was there. That everybody was attachees,
It was you that did the music and sound for it was called Blue Veils and Golden Sands, wasn't it?
No, that was Delia.
It wasn't you?
That was Delia. No. I did.
What, didn't they make a radio documentary based on that though?
I beg your pardon. Yes, they did. I'm not sure if you were talking about the original one. Then
No,
Delia
not
did the original music. Okay, so no, I did that, and it was one of the best things for me that I ever did, because it completely merged the whole radiophonic thing and the whole creating sounds and trying to do everything as she might have done them. In terms of cutting tape, except I didn't cut tape. I had the use of samplers, so I was able to take a milk bottle or a raindrop, and put it into the sampler. And whereas she would have cut it drop by drop by drop and put it all together, I was able to do that. But I just really felt I got under her skin there, and it was a really one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I think I love doing it.
Going back to the Stones of Blood, you mentioned the sounds that you did for the Ogre, or some of the sounds. Do you remember much else about that particular project that you were working on?
No, it was just these blasted great bits of cardboard lumping around. Sorry, I'm being unfair, aren't I? But I mean, that's all they were. You could pick them up with a with a finger. And you just had to make them look realistic, didn't you? So I did. It had to make them sound realistic. So they had to be very heavy, and the blood had to come out of them. So that was my only job, I think. And it was all I remember about it was such a hot 3 weeks, and I was stuck in the studio with tape, lots of tape loops going round and round, massive great tape loops to slow the sound right down. And I think mostly I used my mouth for them, used vocal sounds actually for them. But it was another baptism of fire. I've had quite a few of them actually. But this, doing something for something like Doctor Who, oh my gosh, you're on attachment. There's a lot of responsibility to get it right. So I was very grateful they trusted me. But I had done this poem when I was, which I put forward as a demonstration, and it involved a lot of hissing, and it was a poem called Ass Face, and a lot of sibilants and cutting up tape. So they knew I could get together natural sounds, but there was a lot of my gurgling and recorded and then put onto a loop and going round. We used to have loop stands that went out of the door and went right round. It's a loop of tape. It's a massive, great circle of tape that you join up, and then you put it round so that you can play it at any level, any speed. So it could be very fast or very, very, very slow. And the slower it goes, the lower it goes. So the more frightening it becomes. If you know what I mean.
I think I'm getting the idea.
Do the tape often break?
The Ogre actually had the Ogre actually had like this booming heartbeat as well when they moved. Was that you, or was that the music person doing that?
No, that would have been me. And I know you're going to ask me how I did that. It would have been on a loop, very, very slow and low, and it would have been something that I hit and took the frequencies down, took the top bit off. Might even have been a sound effect from the sound library. We had masses and masses of sound discs of sound effects, which Radio Drama used. So possibly it was that, which I then recorded and then slowed right down. So, I'm pretty sure that's what I think.
If anything, that gave me the sense of the heaviness of them, was that sort of boom, boom, So
yeah, probably a heart.
Sorry, Philip, I cut you off, Philip. Sorry.
I was just asking before in terms of how often the tape would break, and if you're dealing with these huge masses of tape, how thick was the tape? How wide? And how strong was it?
The width was, it was very strong. It was very strong. And it, you had the tape, a little piece of, like sellotape that you had to put across it very neatly. Otherwise it, locked up. It stopped going round and round. But the tape was very strong. I don't recall. The tape loops were a tall metal stand, and you could just wind the tape round it. And I mean, I do remember having them several going at any one time in a room on loop stands. And how did I have them all going around? I must have had 2 or 3 tape machines in the room, because we didn't have I didn't have multi-tracks, but I probably had 2 or 3 tape machines. They'd play 15 feet per inch, or 7.5 feet per inch. I think that's right. Anyway, I had tape machines that I could set off, so the loops all went round at different speeds, because you could set the speed of the loop.
It's a different world.
It is a different world, and the weird thing is that later on in my career, I was sort of recreating everything that I'd done using loops, but you could just do them on the sampler. It's crazy, isn't it? But at that point, in 78, 79, 80, you had these loops. So you had this sticky tape, and it just went round and round at different speeds, because you had variable speeds on the tape machine. But there was nothing, and no samplers or anything like that at all at that stage.
Now, around the same time as the Stones of Blood, maybe touch later. You got the job on Blake 7 doing the special sound on Blake 7, which we'll talk about for our other podcast. But you also did Day of the Triffids, didn't you? Around 81?
Yes, exactly that. Day of the Triffids. Wow. That was, I mean, I didn't realise that was quite a big programme to be put on. I was doing special sound. So, the Triffids had this quite menacing, frightening thing. And actually, one of the sounds I did use was, oh, yes, very good. But also I used, what did I use? I recorded the sound of when boats masts wave in the wind. They're I've forgotten, the wires sort of shimmer across, and there's quite a frightening, not a frightening sound, but it's sort of a sound that you can use in the background. So I think I used that a bit in the Triffids, and I can't remember what I actually used for that clicking sound. I don't know. Have I ever mentioned what I ever used for that?
I don't know.
No,
I mean, it scared the life out of me.
it was effective.
Good. Yes.
Whatever it was.
I just can't remember what it was, but it would have been something that I recorded. I don't know. It might have been something a vocal. Quite often, I use vocal sounds a lot, and then sort of manipulated them. We were still on tapes then. We didn't have computers in 81, so it was definitely all tape manipulation for sure.
So in that time as well, the BBC Radiophonic Workshop had taken over doing the scores for Doctor Who. So we had the regular composers that came in, and you as a composer did a grand total of one Doctor Who story, and that was Timelash. How did that come about, and why did you only do one?
Well, I did Timelash, and I really love that score. I mean, I think it's great, and I don't think it shows that it was done by a woman. That's the other thing. It could have been done by any of them because it's quite forceful and funky, and I really rate that one. Okay, but actually, I was brought on. I got the job because I was doing Blake 7, and Blake 7, the composer Richard Yeoman Clark left halfway through the series. So the reason I got the job at the workshop was because I said I could take on the rest of this 12-part series, and of course I could do it, and no problem. Didn't know. I mean, talk about baptism of fire again. I'd had a lot of experience making sound effects, so that was fine. But Blake 7 was regarded at number 10 if Doctor Who was number 1. We were the lowest of the low slightly at the workshop, and everybody else, all the other 5 were doing their Doctor Who scores, and and I was doing the sounds for Blake 7, and then I don't know how I got to do Timelash, because is it Timelash or Timelapse? Timelash. I
Timelash,
really don't know how
yes.
Timelash. Somebody must have gone away or done something, I don't know. So amazingly, I got offered the chance to do Timelash, and I really enjoyed it. But I was really taken on to do Blake 7, and Doctor Who, Blake 7, there was huge rivalry in the workshop, and that's how it was. So, but Timelash was a fantastic.
Timelash was a few years after Blake 7, though. Timelash, that was 1985.
Okay, when did Blake 7 stop then? I think
81.
Was it 1981?
Oh, well, maybe. Oh, right, okay. Well, I don't remember. I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff around then, and a lot of other music. I guess they just thought they'd better let me have a go, I suppose. Or maybe it was a director who I'd worked with before. Maybe it was a director I'd worked with already. I don't quite know.
It was Pennant Roberts, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Pennant
well,
Roberts
I don't think he had done other Doctor Who's, but I had never worked with him before. He was a good director. He was great.
So what's the process for scoring a Doctor Who?
You meet the director, you get under his skin, you understand what he wants in terms of sounds, the sort of feeling he wants the score to have, and you attempt to produce it for him. You have a playback. He says yes, no. If he says no, you go back and you do it again. It's no different to any other. When you write music for someone else, which is what you're doing essentially at the workshop, you have to be sure that you get under their skin and you know the sort of thing they wanted. At the same time, I also felt it needed to be quite strident and quite big and quite masculine, really, which I think it was. I mean, I really like that score, and it was made into a 12-minute piece or something like that, and it's great. I love it. Really proud of it.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's totally different to The Living Planet. Like, I was listening to that today, thinking how different it was.
Gosh,
it when you're talking about the process, it made me think of you've got a little video on your website, which is elizabeth-parker.co.uk. So I encourage anyone to check it out. Called Backstage, and you've got the instant music challenge where they played you a small section of a footage, and they gave you the direction and the mood to put into it, and you did about 2 or 3 different pieces based on the direction, which completely changed the whole mood of the footage. So I found that fascinating. So I guess that's all part of the process, talking to the director, getting what they want, isn't it?
totally. I mean, that was a baptism, not baptism of fire, but I didn't know what the challenge was, but it was really good way of explaining how you can change the mood of something just by the way you do it. I mean, it was great fun to do, but I mean, that's all what writing music for television or writing music to order is about. You've got to get that mood in, haven't you? You've got to feel it, and that it's a one-off take. She did it, and then we did it again, and it's a fantastic trial. It's a trial by jury slightly, because but at the end they all clapped because I don't actually managed to do it. Yeah, I mean, that's all what writing for a producer is about. You have to write what they want. It's no good if I wanted to write what I wanted to write, I would just be another composer, and it wouldn't matter. But because you're you're writing for someone and the program, you just have to be very sensitive to what the person wants. It's not just what I want to write. It's a question of merging together what the director wants and what I want to do, if possible.
So when are you brought into the process? Do you get to see the scripts before they're filmed? Are you brought in studio time, or after everything's been in the can already taped? When do they bring you in to compose the music?
Okay, there are 2 different ways of doing it. With people I really knew well, they tended to say, for example, somebody called Cherry Cookson, who I did a lot of radio drama with, she would say, right, I need these cues. Can you just write them? And I would give her a body of music, maybe 45, 50 minutes, even an hour of music with her cue, the sort of things she wanted. But with television, it's slightly different, obviously, because you sit with the director right at the beginning, even before it's been cut, the rough cut. You talk to him or her. You understand what they like, what they don't like. I mean, there was one producer I worked for, and he came in and he said, I hate electronic music. I do not want electronic music. I don't want classic. I want it all to be sounds. And I did the score, and it's a really good score, but it's completely sound-based, apart from one distorted piano, which I had to use. But, you really have to understand. A producer will come in and say, I hate the cello, or I hate the piano, or I hate these, synthesized violins. And you have to kind of accept that, and then you have to find ways. And quite often you can persuade them about something. If you do something, you do say, well, okay, I'll do a trial. I'll just see, let me do a little piece and see whether you like that. And so they go away, they come back, and they say, yeah, that's really good. But the first chat you have with them is the most important, because that's when you're understanding what they want and how they want to approach it. I mean, do they want a rhythm track? Do they want it classical? Do they want it like the Beach Boys? I mean, or whatever. It's a real it's a bit like if you're making an advert, I think, an advertising, you've got to understand what the other person wants. It isn't just about me. It isn't just about me. It is very much you're getting into the mind of what the producer wants. Quite often they don't actually know what they want until they hear something and say, oh, that's not really what I was thinking of, but that's all part of your job, being a jobbing composer.
In some ways, it's a bit like Bach and his cantatas, isn't it? That you go back and he gets told what they want each, and week by week you have to produce a whole new score from scratch based on what he's been told he wants, and so it's back to that old model again.
It's exactly like that. It's exactly you're not writing for the joy of yourself. You are writing to fulfill some criteria that the producer has put in front of you, or the director. And your job, if you do it well, it will elevate that. It'll make it even better. And the joy is if you play something back to them and say, oh my God, I didn't realize, and you've sort of changed the program. You've sort of changed the program. Suddenly takes on another life. Not too much of a life, because music shouldn't be dominant, but the music, if it's working well, absolutely enhances so much a program. When it's working badly, it's the worst thing on earth, because you're only listening to the music, you're not looking at the program. But where music works well, it's absolutely brilliant.
You may have only done one Doctor Who, but I wonder how many of the other composers were nominated for an Emmy. How did that feel when you got nominated for The Living Planet?
It was amazing, but actually nobody made any fuss at all. And I think I probably only just put it into my biography or whatever, because it was very odd. Life just went on. I mean, now I think, what? Nominated for an Emmy? My God, that's amazing. But at the time, life just went on. And the card that was sent to me, that I had up in my studio when I moved out of my studio and people were responsible for moving me out, the card disappeared. So I have no knowledge or recollection of the Emmy, of the card. I mean, I didn't get it or anything like that, but it's a fantastic thing to be nominated, isn't it? Fantastic.
Did you go?
No. It was all very underplayed. The whole thing was really, really underplayed, and I mean, it's quite odd, really. I think I got it. I think I think they may have sent me an invitation. I don't really remember. I had young children at the time, and I think it was it was just too much to think about all that. And actually, at the time, I wasn't that bothered. It's only now, in hindsight, I think, wow.
So you're with the radiophonic workshop from the late 70s right through till it finished, and you saw a lot of changes over that time. What are the standout changes? What were the differences between when you started to when it finished?
Okay, so when I started, it was all tape loops, tape manipulation, slow down the tape, cut bits together like they had been in the 60s. The first people there, John Baker and everyone, cutting tape, tiny little bits together, and then tape loops. So then, sometime in the early 80s, we got onto sequencers. Sequencers were probably late 70s, but then at some point we went on to computers. The Apple Mac, we all got given Apple Macs, and that was a baptism of fire. Again, I keep saying this, but actually my whole career was full of baptisms of fire in different ways. Yeah, so we learned to use computers. They were massive, hulking great things, and you had your little thing of floppy disks that you put in, and that did enlarge what one could do and what one could make in terms of music and sound massively. And then we got it wasn't until I actually left the workshop and carried on that I got my entire studio into a computer. So I had nothing else but mixing desks on the computer and everything like that. But yes, I I didn't really enjoy that very much. I'm not, as you know, as I've already said, I came from the arts side, not the physics side. You know, the whole electronics, working a studio on your own was much harder on my own. And I was very lucky at the workshop because we had fantastic engineers, and you always had someone you could ask if something wouldn't work or if you couldn't see how to do it. So in that respect, I was slightly needy, I think, really. But I got there, and you know.
Well, after the workshop, I noticed a couple of things, projects that stood out to me, where you did a bit of work for Monty Python for a
Yes,
DVD
yeah,
release, and
yeah,
a couple
yeah.
of projects for Michael Palin. How did you get involved with those guys?
Well, funnily enough, this sounds awful, but Terry Jones lived round the corner for us, and we used to spend many drunken evenings with him. He was lovely, and so he knew what I did, and he was absolutely fascinated by it. He came round and had a sort of look at. I had a little mock-up studio at home, and he came round. He was really interested, and when the DVD came out, he said he felt they needed some extra music for it, so I did that. And then Michael Palin, I can't quite remember how. Well, of course, he and Terry were great friends. And I, oh, but yeah, Michael Palin was working with other people at the workshop, and then I got asked if I'd like to do a series, and I shared it with Peter Howell, I think, and that was great. In fact, he was such a lovely person to work for, Michael Palin. He was absolutely brilliant, and his programs were tricky, but he was a very easy producer director to work for. At the end, he gave us a massive, great box of wine, which was very nice. The biggest present I've ever been given, I think. But yeah, he was great to work for. Really great, lovely man.
But you've worked on so many projects, like almost a couple of thousand over the years, and it would be impossible to cover all of them. But it's been wonderful to have a little chat with you about this, and particularly your Doctor Who work. Of course, we're Doctor Who fans, so we love all the minutiae of all the stuff that the creatives do. So it's been lovely to talk about that. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a very great pleasure.
Well, our thanks very much to Elizabeth for spending some time with us to talk about her work and to work on Doctor Who as a focus. She's had a huge career, absolutely huge career. If you look into what some of the things she's done, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that she's done over the years in terms of sound and music. Fascinating stuff. Of course, Elizabeth did speak to us, as was mentioned, about Blake 7. So make sure you subscribe to Blake 7 The Way Back so you keep up to date with that. And eventually you will see Elizabeth's comments on that too. And she did say that she's going to be appearing on Series B Blu-ray when they come out very shortly as well. So I think we got in just before the Blu-ray's released.
We beat the Blu-ray out with our interview with Elizabeth Parker. Though I'm sure the Blu-ray will have some pretty special moments, and they'll probably have lots of scenes cut into it too, which our podcast will have as well, in terms of actually seeing some of the effects as they sound.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next time, as was mentioned, we are going to be sharing with the world the episode that some had been able to see at Carol Ann Ford's live events, and that is our chat with Brian Hodgson, who was worked on special sound between 1963 and 1972 on Doctor Who. So that's next time on the podcast. Now, recommendations. I've got a list here. My list is screaming at me saying, Philip, you go first.
Okay, I'm going to recommend the first of the new series of Christopher Eccleston stories, and this time with Billie Piper. So it's pretty exciting to have Christopher and Billie together, and they really have found their groove straight away. I'm still trying to work out. So the first episode is called Snare, and it's very London-based. It's set straight after Father's Day, and so Rose has dealt with watching her father die again and sacrifice his life for her. So, which was a highly emotive, actually one of my favourite shows. Actually, Father's Day is just wonderful. And so the Doctor's brought her back home so she can spend some time recovering from the trauma she's been through. So that's where the story takes place. Camille Kaduri's in it, and anything Camille is in, I just love because she's just amazing. And basically, there's a house on the estate which is filled with vegetation that shouldn't be there. And the Doctor, Rose, Camille, and a couple other people get sucked into a strange new world and adventure that's happening on the estate, the Palace Estate. It's not high key, high suspense. It's a low key Doctor Who story. It's very much, I think, Christopher Eccleston and the Ninth Doctor finding his feet again in terms of where he fits into the story. I suspect as the episodes go on, we'll get bigger drama and heightened adventure. This is just a really lovely piece of the Doctor and Rose spending time together, dealing with what's been a very traumatic event. So great character work, and Christopher and Billy are just marvellous together. So just having them back together is wonderful. So I'm looking forward to more coming out. What about you, Dwayne? What are you listening to?
Well, before I mention my recommendation, I am was just looking up the Ogre. We were talking about Ogre before. Have they been used before? Or have they been used since the Stones of Blood, should I say? And not by Big Finish, that's for sure. There's references to them in comics. There's a couple of comics over the years. There is a novel called Legacy, which was written by Gary Russell, which features some Ogre. I'm not sure to what extent, because that's an Ice Warriors story, Legacy. There is Kate Orman has a reference to the... I think so. Kate Orman in Return of the Living Dad has references to the Ogre as well in there. And all the other reference... Oh, there's a story called The Fall of Iquitaine. That's a novel. But everything else is comics. No Big Finish. There you go. Something Big Finish haven't done. I can't believe we've discovered something. There you go.
So nothing canon has been done except for Stones of Blood.
That's it. Big Finish being canon, of course. Okay.
Of course, Big Finish.
There you go. We're going to have this. We're going to have the Ogre box set come out now from Big Finish. Absolutely. Now that we've given that away.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to recommend something I've been watching because I figured I should watch a bit of television with my wife. But what we've been watching is not the sequel, the prequel to Outlander, which is called Blood of My Blood, which is pretty much entirely set in Scotland. And it's got the same feel as Outlander. I don't know if you've seen any Outlander, Philip, but it's pretty good if you haven't seen it before. The ladies love it, and it's good enough for the boys to watch with the ladies as well. So yeah, I've been watching that. Not quite sure how I feel about prequels and sequels and things because last week's episode, the whole episode spent finding out whether the protagonist or one of the protagonists is still a virgin, and she wasn't. So they were trying to hide. It was just, I don't know. And the week before that, there was something else that was very, very slow. I kept saying to my wife, not much is happening here, is it? They're just dragging out the story as long as they possibly can, which is great if they want to keep making series after series. But I think there's not as much story there as there could be. But it's still got the same feel as Outlander. And if anyone likes Outlander, you're going to like Blood of My Blood. That's what I've been watching.
Great.
All right, Philip, wonderful to be with you. Wonderful to have Elizabeth on the podcast. And looking forward to when we get together again.
Hopefully it won't be too long.
Catch you all next time.
Bye, Ron.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, Timelash and Other Galactic Funk, with our guest Elizabeth Parker and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Catch up with all the latest info, including news on our live events at sirensofaudio.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our brand new podcast, Blake 7, The Way Back. Contact us via email at sirensofaudio@gmail.com or find us on all our social media at Audio Sirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.